Hey guys, Legendary Grimlock here, and welcome back to Wrath of Goliath, a Jurassic World and Evolved story with a hint of other things in there. Basically, anything that would just honestly make the most sense, right? And if you guys are wondering when I started the story, you can actually go to the playlist of the Wrath of Goliath section where we do have chapters 1 through 4. And well, I hope you guys enjoy them because we'll just be continuing this story where we left off with Yuri and Grimlock or Goliath here, pretty much going after the flame in this one. So without further ado, let's begin our story Into the Flame. Picking up where we left off, but this time, this actually happens with Pete, Miles, and MJ after witnessing the news here. Both of them, or sorry, all three of them discussing what they're going to do now with not only the hunters in the city, but with Goliath as well. We would then pan over to, I guess you could say, just a neighborhood in general. And we would actually see Yuri kind of just waiting in the background as Goliath is signing autographs here. Basically, if you guys remember the last part, Goliath is known as one of the strongest people on the planet through basically his sheer strength of wrestling creatures like Deinosuchus, Purosaurus, Stomatosuchus, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Basically, your average creature in Jurassic Park or the new and improved Jurassic World, where with everything under control, more, I guess you could say, more than enough in control here, they started adding new creatures and adding new shows to which Goliath would wrestle these creatures, and these creatures would actually build a sort of bond with him, kind of seeing it as a game in a way. But again, they would still be creatures and dangerous creatures nevertheless here. Goliath would be signing autographs left and right, just trying to, well, get everything done as quick as possible. And he kind of does look annoyed by it, but he understands that this comes with the territory. To which Yuri says it took you long enough, and Grimlock does apologize for this. He doesn't really mean for it, and he actually says he does hate the fame, but he understands that with the job he does, it kind of comes with it. To which he kind of rolls her eyes and understands it and just hopes it doesn't interfere with their business. So they actually head to an apartment complex and they head to a very specific door, something that looks very familiar. And once they knock on it, it opens and it's Rio Morales who answers the door, and she's actually shocked, saying, "Nephew?" To which it's a bit awkward in a way because they haven't seen each other in years. To which Grim does confirm that it is him and that, yeah, he's alive. To which Yuri also kind of pops out and introduces herself, and Rio's pretty calm and comfortable with her, so I don't think it would be awkward at all here. She was the former police captain after all here. And Rio says that she'll make him something to eat, that he must be starving. However, Grimlock proposes that he cooks instead. So while he's cooking, Rio and Yuri kind of get acquainted with each other, kind of catching up or just asking about how Yuri's been since the whole Hammerhead incident. And Yuri goes on to note that after being fired, she kind of had a little bit of clarity that she cannot trust the law itself. It just benefits too many criminals. But as that conversation is going, Miles actually walks in through the front door saying, "Hey," and he's a bit shocked but angry at who he sees. And this is where Grimlock pretty much says, "Hey, little cousin." To which Miles says he shouldn't be here. And Grim states that he understands how it looks. He understands that the last time they spoke, they weren't on best terms. And Miles is just not taking this well. It gets angrier and angrier as, the conversation tries to go, as Grim tries to apologize for the things that have happened. And Miles goes on to rock him. However, his hand hurts. This shocks Yuri from her perspective and Rio from hers as well. Because again, they both know that the opposite side is more dangerous, or at least they think one is more dangerous than the other, and shocked that the other can, at least budge him or that he wasn't hurt by it. And this is where Grim pretty much sits down with everyone as he cooked their, I guess you could say, a decent meal or whatever. And he pretty much explains that when he was leaving, he didn't have the best terms with his fathers before joining the military, or at least, Hoskins' division. And he and his father didn't get along because of their views of it. Plus, he didn't really like the fact that his father kind of moved on and married another woman. He felt like he replaced his mother. So, yes, Darius and his older brother are technically stepbrothers in this one. So he feels like he's been replaced. He felt hurt. He felt kind of betrayed and abandoned by his father. So he thought the best way to, I guess, go on with the situation was to leave. However, his father had a heart attack during this. And this would lead to him, I guess you could say, the other members of his family resenting him in a way. Miles can't stand this. However, Rio actually now sees how wrong that they were and does apologize. And she says that they shouldn't have blamed him for it. However, Miles can't let that go. He's still angry. He still seems resentful. He still blames him for that. And this actually, you might say, is out of character for Miles. But again, keep in mind, he doesn't deal with death very well during these kind of incidents. Keep in mind how much of a grudge he held against Martin Lee for, I guess, for pretty much killing his father. And he still said at the end of it, he couldn't forgive him, but he can't hold on to this hatred. To which Yuri and Rio all notice the sparks around Miles' hands, and Grimlock does try to apologize. He tries to not notice it, trying to look a list, I guess you could say, look like he just doesn't know Miles has these powers and abilities. But Miles tells him that he needs to leave. And he does it with little to no, I guess you could say, hesitation about it. He understands, but Rio does hug him goodbye. And this spirals into an argument with both Rio and Miles about forgiving those and pretty much accepting the fact that you were wrong about certain things. And this is where Miles decides to kind of track down Grimlock here. He goes into a Spider-Man suit, and keep in mind, he's still somewhat enraged by it. He can't stand the fact that he feels like he knows he's wrong, but he also feels like Grimlock could have done better. Into which Yuri and Grim both pretty much walk off into an alley, and as they begin to change and suit up, Yuri does ask him, does he regret it? Does he regret leaving his family like that? And to which Grimlock says, yes, but he shouldn't have got blamed for it. To which Yuri says she can understand that, but again, you have to also look at the matter's perspective. To which Grim is silent for a bit. He does have to think about that. As again, yes, people can blame others for something that they didn't cause, but again, the perspective of it looks like you caused this because of your actions. Your actions are the reason why this happened here. It's dumb, but again, we have to understand how people sometimes function. This is where Grimlock goes into his Goliath form, and they pretty much just, well, Yuri hops on his back, and they go on to their next destination, which would be the Flame Base. Now, as Goliath is pretty much running through and pretty much, I guess you say like King Konging through the city, just jumping from building to building, making sure he has enough stability not to crash through it. This is where we see Miles following them as well. However, in an invisible helicopter, or at least in one of the Hunter's helicopters, right? Craven is simply following, saying that this should be a good test. And as they make their way, or as Miles makes his way to the facility, he's actually an hour later than both Yuri and Goliath. Basically, what he sees is just a bloody mess. Some people alive, some people just dismembered, and obviously, dead, right? And then there are those who are just seemingly unconscious. Basically, they tore through that place like a hot knife through butter, like a whole hurricane went through that place. That's what it looks like. There are claw marks, there are, Wraith's chain marks, there are stab wounds on some of the people here, and it just looks like a bloodbath. And this is where Yuri tries to confront a informant that she heard about for Flame. However, a flamethrower or a flamethrower henchman or whatever tries to burn Yuri. And this is where Goliath comes from behind, grabs him by his hands, crushes the flamethrowers on top of his hands, causing a mini explosion, which burns this man's hands and just tosses him at Yuri's feet. To which Yuri promptly steps on the burnt and crisp hand at this point and asks him for the information instead. To which he tries not to give it up, but again, Yuri begins to apply pressure and pressure and eventually gets the information. Goliath then reverts back into his human form, and Miles sees this and begins to get angrier and angrier. However, he wonders what's going on, so he does survey the room a little bit and does zoom in on the information on the board about this grand plan for the flame and everything here. And this is where GRIMLOCK begins to open his senses a bit more, wondering if anyone else is in the area, and this is where he smells Spider-Man. He knows that it's Miles, but he tries to portray that he doesn't know who he is here and goes into his Goliath stage in order to fight him. I do think he could find him at his human stage, considering his human stage is handling very powerful, dinos and stuff like that. But for the sake of the story, let's say that he goes into his Goliath stage, all right? Now, Miles would basically jump down and already have his Venom Blast already out here, to which Goliath would then just simply look at Yuri and tell her just to get all the information that they need here. And, well, Yuri would go on to, I guess you could say, find Cletus Cassidy in a way. But this time, Cassidy just gets away, or at least he's not there. He's more on the, I guess you say, holo projector side more than anything. And this is where both Miles and Goliath both duke it out, kind of smashing through walls and everything. And Miles' Venom Blast doesn't really affect him. It is more like a bee sting than anything. However, the strength behind the attacks, Miles is able to harm him. However, when Miles tries to go for another Venom Punch like he did with Rhino, or at least a web-like Venom Punch, like he just web strikes and then just Venom punches him like over or whatever. And then Goliath simply punches him away and then proceeds to follow up with a leap smash. However, instead of putting any explosive force behind it, he grabs Miles mid-air and just simply slams him into the ground. That's enough already, and while again Goliath is holding back, this pushes Miles to his absolute limits, and this is where he actually unlocks his blue electricity for the first time, and out of sheer rage just launches it at Goliath, sending him flying through the facility. But again, Goliath is more or less shocked than actually hurt by this. And this is where Yuri actually wraps her chain around Miles, telling him he doesn't know what he's doing. And as the two argue about it and argue what's going on here, Goliath recovers from that hit and again is still more or less shocked. But as he makes his way through the hole here and begins to, I guess you could say, almost deform for a bit, he's actually grabbed by his tail and gets pretty much just twirled in the air and just slammed right into the ground here. Again, shocked, but this time he actually felt this here. And this is where it's revealed to none other be the lizard. Now, I know this is a concept art for Iguana, but I actually think it fits perfectly for what I'm trying to paint for the Spider-Man 2 narrative. This lizard is actually being controlled by Kraven and his hunters. Kraven says, let's see how powerful you really are, or let's see how much of worthy prey, or how much worth you are as prey. And Goliath gets up, hurt, but he does see the lizard. Now, in this one, I do think a lizard should be at least somewhat relative to Goliath in size. He probably is the same size as Goliath, or probably just slightly smaller than a stage 3. He's probably around the same size as a stage 2 in my opinion. And the thing is, Lizard is a bit different in this timeline, because remember, we do have that Jurassic World-esque feel for the hybridization and everything. And Lizard in this one has the lizard formula, but it's been slightly changed with Megalania, Barinasuchus, and Caprosuchus DNA, basically making a much more terrifying and lethal lizard. Like, just imagine a more dinosaurus-esque lizard than what you see in Spider-Man 2. I think he will look like this, don't get me wrong, but just a little bit more amplified, you know? And this is where Lizard, instructed by Craven, is instructed to attack him. Goliath, seeing this, gets literally behind him, grabs him by the tail, and begins to twirl him. Building up the momentum in speed, he literally flings Lizard into the building and just simply turns his attention to the hunters, as he thinks that Lizard should not be a problem, you know? However, he gets reminded very quickly that Lizard is vastly enhanced here, as Lizard simply blitzes him before he could blink and slams him through one of the hunter's trucks, and the two begin to have a back and forth. Wraith, seeing this, knows that she can handle, Goliath should be able to handle himself here, and actually leaves here. However, Miles goes on to follow Yuri after she had the whole flame explanation, and I think Miles would be more on board with getting Cletus Cassidy before, well, probably a bit more inclined to get rid of him now than Peter would. Not saying that he would kill him, but it's very possible he would probably act on it a bit sooner and a bit more hands-on than Peter. Because that's just how Miles was a bit more portrayed. He was a bit more portrayed to kind of get it done right then and there than Peter, who was kind of I wouldn't say a procrastinator, but would kind of just wait. Now that they're there, I think that it could happen a bit earlier. And Craven, well, I guess we could say back to Craven, right? Craven right now is enjoying the view here. Just enjoying Goliath and Lizard, just these two animals duking it out, wondering who is really worth his time. Who's worthy of giving him a warrior's death here. And this is where Goliath would say beat down on Lizard here, just straight up unleashing pure unadulterated hell upon him, just straight up comboing this man in hand to hand until Lizard unleashes a sonic scream. This sonic scream is again much more enhanced and much more focused, basically making it a sonic beam, like Screech from Pokemon, like Onyx and Steelix. Think of that, but with a much more destructive push right behind it. And Craven actually looks at his schematics for Goliath that he took the last time and actually sees that Goliath seems to be responding to the sonic emission in a different way here. And Goliath begins to push through it with his body heat actually increasing here. And this allows him to make a fire punch, like just coat his fist in fire, and he uses it to one-shot the Lizard, not causing an explosion or anything, but he does wind up, well, falling over an explosion to disperse every hunter around him. This sends everyone flying, their vehicles flying into different areas of the hideout that they're in, or at least around, because they are outside here, so this may even go into things like oncoming traffic and everything. Meanwhile, the whole flame incident, while that was going on, the whole ending to the Carnage or Cletus Cassidy story pretty much plays out the same here. Except he's not able to really get away this time. Or at least he's not able to get away by helicopter here. He pretty much goes into the sewers with his symbiote this time. Meaning that he's pretty much stuck in New York City. So, yeah, that's pretty much interesting. And it ends the same way as in the original, except for one thing. Wraith tells Miles to stay out of his way, into which Miles says he'll think about that, and he pretty much swings off, going home this time. However, back with Goliath, he's pretty much manhandling the hunters at this point here. It's not a challenge, it's not a competition, because now, for some reason, he feels a lot faster than he was before, being able to handle every hunter, and then Craven himself tries to jump into the fray here. However, having enough of this and not wanting to deal with them anymore, he simply makes a thunderclap, sending everyone away. Now, Goliath does take a moment to assert the situation here and does look at himself a little bit. He wonders just how much potential, I should really say, he really has here. How much can he evolve? In a way, right? And Craven says you fit I guess you could say you fit the bill as prey. However, Goliath picks up the computer that Craven had and simply walks off with it. How would I end this off in all honesty? I would actually say they would go to both Yuri and Goliath would meet at their underground headquarters and discuss recruiting more heroes to basically handle this situation as they know that more is coming to the city. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share it to your friends. I know this one was a bit more chaotic, but I kind of wanted it to portray that way here. You have the hunters, you have the Venom story, which is going to happen in the next chapter, and then you also have Carnage. All right, you have the cultists and Carnage in this one. So, in all honesty, I think it should be portrayed a little bit more chaotic than the original. But hey, that's going to be all for today, and I'll see you guys for another chaotic chapter of Wrath of Goliath. Peace.